correct, and I want to set the record straight today, and hopefully I can do that. Which one? Bob in that I wanted to stake. On August the 4th, 1982, I instituted a departmental safety committee to look at our equipment, to look at other problems that we may have internally. And the subjects discussed were brakes, suspension, shocks, spotlights, and right rear view mirrors. Conclusion to this is that there is no major outstanding problem. Officers are instructed as to what the procedure is to have equipment repaired, and if it's not repaired to their satisfaction, they're instructed how to rectify that problem. And it's officers are not permitted to drive unsafe vehicles.
A year ago, the Oklahoma Corrections Department had about 5,300 prisoners in its custody. In the past 12 months, prison doors have closed behind an additional 1,000 inmates. Last January, the department began double-celling convicts at the Lexington State Prison. Last month, the system double-celled its 2,000th prisoner. At the present time, 1 out of every 3 state prisoners shares a cell with a roommate in a cubicle designed to hold just one person. Under a federal court order, the Corrections Department has stepped up its plans to modernize its institutions. But if the prison population continues to increase by 650 inmates every 6 months, the department could be forced to begin triple celling within a few years. So far, the legislature has been unwilling to restrict the number of prisoners put into the system, and lawmakers have been unwilling to let inmates out early. Senate President Marvin York says that only leaves one realistic solution to prison overcrowding.
The suggestions that we have come up with lead us only to one conclusion, and that is that we are probably going to be faced with the necessity of spending a great deal of money to build some new prison facilities. I don't think there is any other alternative to that, because we're simply out of space, and there is no other way to go at this point in time except to make space available for them. And that's going to be very difficult because it is going to be very expensive. We're talking about multiplied millions of dollars.
Even if the legislature does decide to build a new prison, it won't cure the overcrowding problem anytime soon. Experts estimate it'll take 3 years to build a new prison, maybe even longer if neighbors oppose the site selection. And not many people want to live next door to a new prison. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the state capitol.
Business is booming at the unemployment offices around Oklahoma, and that's bad news for everyone. Around 60,000 claims have been filed in the Sooner State for unemployment benefits, just 2,000 less than the all-time jobless rate of 8% in 1975. Many of the nation's unemployed continue to head for Oklahoma for jobs because they have been told work is plentiful here. They are coming at a time when state residents are fighting for good jobs. At the same time, unemployment offices are losing staff because of cutbacks.
I have never seen the influx of people from out of state, particularly that we're having now, and people who are obviously desperate, that want to go to work anywhere, that will do almost anything for a job. And of course we try to give them all the service that we can. We try to give everybody all the service that we can, but we're being asked to do more and more with fewer and fewer people.
Pratt says he has never seen a jobless situation in Oklahoma as bad as it is now. He adds the unemployment figures don't even count those who have given up looking for a job, people called discouraged workers. As for any good employment news around the corner, state officials say there isn't any. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Conductor Harold de la Fuente walked onto the stage and stepped back a few hundred years in time. He opened this season's classics with a favorite composer and composition, Beethoven's Symphony No. 3. The Romantic Century piece was originally dedicated to Napoleon Bonaparte, but today it was played for the pleasure of 20th century symphony goers. It took 75 instrumentalists to perform this epic piece, and the score is one of the most demanding for its performers. Debbie Mash, Action 4 in downtown Oklahoma City.
Aviation experts say airplane sales are a good indicator of the nation's economy. If that's true, then the country is still in the grips of a recession. Oklahoma aircraft dealers' sales soared in the early 80s. Fueled by the oil boom, new and used airplanes continued to sell in Oklahoma long after the recession set in across the country. But things are different now that the oil and gas search has gone flat.
Well, a year ago, we had a lot of people that was selling. It was more on the supply and demand, and order taking. Today, you have to get out there and do the real selling job. It's not as easy, but yet it can be done.
Local aircraft dealers are confident sales will start rolling again as soon as the country pulls out of its economic tailspin.
We're anticipating continued flat sales, probably well below our peak years, but we think that the recovery is underway. We forecast a stronger year next year, slower than we've experienced in the past. We don't see boom or bust type aircraft sales occurring as they have in the past.
The airplane sales picture is not all gloom. The depressed market has driven down the prices of many planes. A smart buyer just might be able to pick up a rap rooster for a song. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Norman.
It's almost unbearable to look at. Children beaten for no apparent reason. Last year, 15 kids in Oklahoma City died from such beatings.
Well, next thing we know, there's an argument that ensues between him and his wife, and supposedly he picks up a bottle and breaks it over her head, this young lady's head.
Now a law is in effect that might offer some help. It's called the Protection from Domestic Abuse Act. A member of a household who is abused, adults as well as children, may file a petition for a protective order in the district court. The person filing doesn't have to have an attorney. A victim like this one would go to the district attorney's Victims Witness Center, which will handle the paperwork. Judge Carmen Harris said the county's chief judge would then hold a hearing with only the victim present. The chief judge would issue an order. At a later date, the alleged abuser will be given a chance to contest the findings. After the second hearing, the chief judge can modify or vacate the original order. Harris said the hearing judge has a lot of leeway in forming the order.
He can take such action as he thinks appropriate, keep the person away from home, restrain him, enjoin him from making telephone calls or coming by the house. He could either if he deemed proper, he could put him in jail, but he'd have to set a bond.
So for children and other victims of domestic abuse, this act may mean a new lease on life. Bill Ross, Action 4.
the Chamber of Commerce wants to help us stop this.
The distributor, no doubt, is going to be contacting you soon. Are you going to carry the game for those who possibly would like the game?
In my better interest as a retailer and someone's trying to do business in this community, I feel I'm not going to carry it. I think I can do better by carrying other things than to carry this one particular game, so I won't be carrying it.
The attack occurred this morning as a large group of people, many of them children, were leaving services at the synagogue in Rome's ancient Jewish section. Eyewitnesses say 2 men overpowered a guard and waited for a bar mitzvah service to end. According to police, at least 5 gunmen threw hand grenades and fired automatic rifles into the crowd. Some of the wounded stumbled into a nearby apartment building. Among them was a woman with a small baby clutched in her arms. One of the injured crawled up steps to ring a bell seeking help. This afternoon, an angry mob outside the synagogue charged today's attack is the result of last month's cordial meetings here between Palestine Liberation Organization leader Yasser Arafat and some top government leaders, as well as the Pope. This man says the attack was carried out by the PLO.
And the Palestinian people want to die all Jewish in all world.
Want to kill all the Jews.
All Jewish. This is a problem.
Today, the Italian government held an emergency meeting to discuss security measures in Jewish communities. Ike Siemens, NBC News, Rome.
Most thought this morning's Regent meeting would be routine, and it was until they went into executive session about 9:30. Less than a half hour later, the Regents returned to the conference room, and member Dan Little made the motion.
I'd like to make the following motion. Based upon the desire and willingness of Dr. William Banowsky to resume his duties as president of the University of Oklahoma, I move that Dr. William Banowsky be reinstated as president of the University of Oklahoma, effective November 1st, 1982, at the same remuneration as previously set.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carried.
Banowsky held a news conference early this afternoon at the OU Student Union. He returned from Los Angeles yesterday, and since then has been ironing out the specifics of his return. He left no doubt this afternoon that he considers ever leaving Oklahoma a mistake.
If what you're probing for is an answer to the question as to whether I was begged by the Regents to return or whether I asked them for the privilege of returning, I would say it was the latter, that I asked them if they would have me back, and they hung a yellow ribbon on the old oak tree. How long can we expect to have you back for? Well, I have always been the kind of person who felt the pressure to be on the move. I guess they put that in the drinking water in Fort Worth when I was reared, that you can't be too happy with what you're doing because you need to also be planning to do something else. As a result of that, I've been the kind of person who tried to keep and has always kept as many options as possible alive and open. I am closing more options with this decision and this choice than I've ever closed before.
St. Luke's Methodist Church is a familiar sight to many, probably because of the majestic bell tower decorating the downtown skyline. On a scaffolding 165 feet up, there's work to be done. The bells in the St. Luke's Tower were installed in 1956. They've never been serviced since, and time has taken its toll. Tim Whiteloff and Theo King travel the world repairing bell carillons. The older of the two, Theo, has been in the business 30 years now. Tim's new at it. And for each, every job is a special challenge.
It's getting the instrument till it'll really play like playing a violin or something. You gotta have it right or it don't play right.
It feels good because, you know, I can look at my work and it, you know, it works and I know that I did it and something that I have accomplished, I and others, of course.
Did you get another one of those, Timothy?
It will probably be 12 days before music will ring out from the tower again. A tedious 12 days considering the poor condition of almost each of the 25 bells. But when the job is done, it will be done to perfection. You see, that's just the way Theo King does things.
We don't put out junk. We put out some of the best playing units there is. We work on them all over and we tear out a lot of other people's stuff and put our stuff in. That's why I say we're the best.
Dan Slocum, Action 4.
And this land is not doing any good as far as making revenue for the state. It subsidizes agriculture, but that isn't what the money's for. So I've ordered them to sell it in 5 different groups starting in January of '84. And every year, as the leases expire, they're to sell that particular group and put the money into something that's more productive and yieldful to the trust.
The Oklahoma Panhandle has never really recovered from the Depression Dust Bowl. The laws of nature have always been harsh on people who tried to tame the Rocky region. Man-made laws have become even harsher for farmers and ranchers in the area. Last week, Oklahoma County District Court Judge Joe Canon ruled the state must sell its vast western Oklahoma holdings. That's bad news for ranchers like Melvin Williams. His family has built many improvements on the state-owned land they've leased for the past 5 decades. Now, that land must be sold and the improvements auctioned off. Melvin, what do you think of Judge Canon's decision?
The way they've done us, if they take our personal property away from us and not reimburse us on it, it'd be the same way as like people in town. They lease a house and you move your personal property into it and you live there 2 years. The landlord says, that's my property and you won't be able to take it away. Take your property away. And that's the same thing as they've done to us here on this.
Judge Canon ordered the property sold at public auction, but longtime leaseholders are convinced they won't be able to afford the land they've worked for generations.
There's not enough money in this country to buy this land. It can't be bought by the people that need it. It'll be lawyers or doctors, and I have nothing against lawyers and doctors, but they're going to be the ones that are going to end up buying this land.
Judge Canon's order was only handed down last week, so the Panhandle ranchers haven't had much time to reflect on how the ruling will affect their lifestyles. Their initial reaction? The decision couldn't have been handed down at a worse time, unless perhaps the order would have been issued during the last Depression. Scott Wallace, Action 4, near Guyman, Oklahoma.
breaks down, but with the federal deficit, borrowing is going to occur. Can you see a way that the lid can be kept on interest rates, or do you
Yes.
see a bottom?
The U.S. investments here. Now, to the extent I think we'll avoid that, first of all.
So those four things I think we've done reasonably well on. Inflation, interest rates, controlling the rate of growth of federal spending, and taxes. Now all four of those lead up to the final one, in which we have not as yet succeeded. That's unemployment. But we've laid the groundwork to get unemployment under control by setting the scene for a good business recovery in this country. I think personally right now, we're in the throes of that recovery. I don't think it's perceptible.
So you see what you're looking at?
Some radios and TV and whatever. So it was widely known, and we did get the education groups, churches and local activists, what we want if it's passed on the ballot. Okay.
Let's see. You got a wide range of
Lexington and Noble and collected some signatures out there. People are aware of the nuclear freeze and the aggression and the dangerousness of nuclear weapons, and that was our objective, to acquaint people with that issue. And I think people's awareness and consciousness is raised now because we did this here in Cleveland County, at least.
Arson. It's a firefighter's nightmare. Arson fires are always senseless and expensive. This fire at Spring Lake Amusement Park destroyed the roller coaster, and he'll put the park out of business. But in this case, a tip led to the arrest of the arsonist. Many times, fire investigators will not seek to prosecute suspected arsonists because so often the only evidence is circumstantial. In the last 2 years, 10 people were killed in arson fires, which is up considerably. In an effort to arrest more arsonists in Oklahoma, state investigators will hold a 3-day conference starting tomorrow.
The investigators in places other than Oklahoma City and Tulsa, that they don't have that many cases. They're not in court every other week, and it's a difficult environment. The conference hopefully will give them some better experience and understanding for how to prepare their cases and how to get good arrests and good prosecution in case of arson.
This is a recent arson fire at the Youngblood Hotel. Structures like the hotel are usually easy targets to torch because they are old, empty buildings about ready to be torn down. But arson has no boundaries when it comes to what is burned. That's why in 1981, more than $15 million in damage resulted from intentional fires all around Oklahoma. Who pays? You do, with higher insurance rates. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Recently, there's been a lot of talk on the Oscar Rose campus about the college newspaper. The newspaper staff has captured the attention of students and faculty with an advertisement for guaranteed term papers. The college paper, the 15th Street News, published the half-page ad for 3 issues. The term paper service sounds like a student's dream come true. An A-plus term paper for no more effort than licking a postage stamp. But Debbie Goodwin, editor of the paper, says they just needed the money.
We ran the ad because we did not see anything wrong with it at all. We believe that it is a moral issue more than anything else, really. Our income that we get from our advertising is applied toward our salaries, and that should say it there.
Goodwin says an editorial published in the same issue told the administration side of the issue. The editorial encouraged students not to use the term paper service.
I don't see the college either condoning or not condoning a paid ad. We do certainly have some rules about what should be run, and the Publications Board would be the agency to look into that. But paid ads are paid ads.
That's it. Carter says he doesn't expect students to use the term paper service. College administrators say the newspaper is operated by the students, but another term paper advertisement probably won't be appearing. Debbie Mash, Action 4 at Oscar Rose Junior College.
"20-year-old Bobby Joe Standridge has been behind bars on a burglary charge for the past 6 months. Authorities have long suspected Standridge was connected to the killing of Tammy Carter. They knew he lived in Moore at the time of the murder, and they knew he was a friend of a man already convicted of the crime. But prosecutors didn't want to file charges against Standridge until they had physical evidence linking him to the slaying. They now feel they have that evidence. Dental pathologist Dr. Thomas Glass recently took an impression of Bobby Standridge's teeth. He compared that impression to a bite mark found on the victim's right breast. Dr. Glass could not say positively the bite mark belonged to Standridge, but he did find an extremely close resemblance between the bite mark and the impression.
It is akin to fingerprints in the sense that...
Prosecutor Rick Sitzman says that bite mark evidence will have to stand up against some tough questioning.
Do the plaster casts fit? Do the teeth in the plaster cast fit into the impressions in the plaster impression of the person's body that was bitten? As a prosecutor, it tells me that we've got probable cause to believe that Mr. Standridge is the person who left the bite mark on Tammy Carter's body.
Prosecutors may get an opportunity to use this new bite mark evidence even before Bobby Standridge is bound over for trial. The DA's office would like to get Dr. Glass to testify about the bite marks during the upcoming murder trial for Timothy Rist. And the prosecutors would like to prove that both Timothy Rist and Bobby Standridge were involved in a conspiracy to kill Tammy Carter. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the Cleveland County Courthouse.
Older ones can fend for ourselves, but these children, it's a different situation. Not only the ones that are over the United States of America, where are they going to go?
One thing hasn't changed. The children still dress up in adorable costumes.
Trick or treat! My heavens, what have we got?
But now Mom has to come along for protection, and balloons are given out instead of candy, which can be easily tampered with. It's sad that a holiday made especially for children has to be ruined by adults. But this year, parents everywhere are having second thoughts about Halloween. They're afraid their child will be the victim of a trick disguised as a treat.
They are very aware that there's a problem with the candy. In fact, my child just said to me, "Mommy, this looks weird." You know, it was just a piece of candy he'd never seen before. And so they know that something is going on.
I think it's sad that we're all afraid, you know, even go up and down our own blocks anymore because you're afraid that you don't know everybody as well as you thought you did. And, you know, you hear so many weird things happening anymore.